Hey guys, and welcome to my channel, and more importantly, welcome to my book or reading tracker, whichever you prefer to call it. I'm going to try and keep this video as short and simple as possible, but as you can see, there are quite a number of categories to get through. And of course, the link to this template is in the description box below. It is 100% free, so please do check it out if you enjoy this layout. So let's get straight into it. First of all, as you can see, title, pretty straightforward. Book tracker, you can rename this to reading tracker or whatever you prefer to call it. And then there is the index. So within the index, there are 3 sections, and I will get to those in a moment. But first, I want to explain what's happening with the rest of this page. So as you can see, there is a super simple quote by Oscar Wilde that I love. And then we move on to slightly more complicated things. So this is the goals page, and it's set up using the Notion formula section. So if you want to actually go into this formula and change it yourself, figure out how these things work, then of course you can. But currently it is set up to work pretty much perfectly no matter what you add here. So the idea is you can decide how many books you want to read in a certain time. So for example, how many books you want to read 2023. You can change this to January. You can change this to next week. Whatever you want to track your reading goals, whatever time frame you want to use, it is super simple to rename it. Then after that, you have the reading goal itself. So for example, you want to read 50 books in 2023. This section is the total amount of books that you have read, and this is set up automatically, so you do not need to change this number yourself. I'll explain later on how it updates itself. And then the first of the formulas is your reading progress. So this is how many books you've read. So you've read 6 books out of your reading goal, which in this case is 50. Below that is a progress bar. This is just kind of a more visual way to see or to realize how many books you've read. You can of course delete this if you prefer to just have the numbers, but I find it a lot easier to picture visually how close I am to achieving my goal. So in this case, 6 out of 50 tends to be 12%. And then the bookshelf again will update itself automatically, so you don't need to worry about it. And this is a list of the books that you have read. These are just example books. I will show you them in a few moments. So whatever books you add yourself will appear here. So that is your goal section. It is displayed as a gallery currently because I just really like this short little layout, but you can change this to whatever you want, a table, Kanban board, whichever suits you. And moving on to the books, there are 2 sections here, currently reading and my next to be read. So for currently reading, you can see we have the status, the book title, the author, number of pages, and the format. So the status, you can select what you are currently doing with each book. So if you've already finished it, if you just did not finish, if you're reading, or if you're like me, I tend to have a lot of books at once, but some of them are more important than others. So for example, in progress is books that I'm actively reading right now, and side books are books that I kind of come back to from time again. So this is like short stories, for example. I believe the example here exactly is Sherlock Holmes. So I'm not going to sit down and read the entire collection of Sherlock Holmes at once. I might read one short story, leave it for a week, read another short story. And having the option side books just makes this a lot easier for me to keep track of what I'm reading. Book title, self-explanatory. The author, in this situation, I have the surname first and then the author's first name. But of course, you can change this to just be read as a normal name if you want it to be. And then we have the number of pages. So this book is 409 pages. And finally, the format. So again, loads of options here to select. It can be an audiobook, an ARC. So an ARC is a book that you've been given before the publishing date. So you receive the early copy of the book in return for your review. This definitely won't apply to everyone, but if you're like myself and you do have a agreement with the company for these books, then you have the option here to select it. Ebooks, hardbacks, paperbacks, and special editions. There is a counter telling you how many books you're reading at once, as well as the total amount of pages that you're reading at once, which is a lot scarier than looking at these individually. But moving on, you can also view these in gallery mode. So I do keep my side books section minimized, but of course you can open it so you can see both of them together at once. And again, super nice to just be able to see all the book covers. Of course, since there is only one book in each section here, it doesn't really make sense to use it right now, but you'll see later on for larger examples, it just looks super, super pretty. And again, this is grouped into in progress and side books, but if you want to remove this grouping, no problem, and just have all the books that you're reading as one. And the final section on this page is my next to be read. Again, this is a very, I suppose, specific thing in the sense that this definitely won't apply to everyone. It's just if you prefer to be super, super organized like I do, then I do like having this table. And the idea behind this table is these are the books that I'm not reading now, but I do want to read them next. So they're not normal to be read in the sense that you have the book, you just haven't read it yet. These are books that I specifically want to read as soon as I'm finished reading my current book. So this will make a lot more sense when you see the bookshelf later, but it is saved as a to be read. You have the book title, the author, number of pages, and the format again. And of course, you can also switch to gallery mode, which is a lot prettier when there's more than one book. You can also see the author and the genre. And again, if you want to change these or if you want to remove them entirely, that is 100% possible as well. So now that you've seen the homepage, the dashboard for the book tracker, let's go into each of these three categories. So I'm actually going to start with the wish list because it is the shortest and easiest to explain. This, as you've probably guessed, is where you keep track of the books that you want to buy. So I've divided this into physical books and ebooks. There is a lot of debate as to whether physical books are better than Kindle, for example, and I'm definitely not going to get into that right now, but I will say that personally, I will choose both. I read both physical books and I do have a Kindle, and depending on the book, sometimes I don't mind if it's an ebook, sometimes I really want the physical book. So that's why I have these divided in two, and they are drop-down menus in case you want to neaten things up if you happen to have loads of books here. But again, super simple, nice place to keep track of it, and of course a little Christmas tree icon, because when it's coming up to Christmas, you can just send this to your friends and family and they'll know exactly what to get you. So going back to the main page, next we will do 2023. And again, you can rename this to anything you want, to February, to next week, to next month, whatever time frame you want to use. Personally, I do keep it in years, and this is actually going to relate back to your goal. So if you remember, I said that the progress bar, the reading progress, the bookshelf, these three categories will update themselves, and they are updating themselves based on this page. So this is a list of the books that you have read over the year. Of course, 2023 is just an example, as are these months. So I've divided them into different groups depending on the month they were read. So for example, The Maidens, written by this guy, this number of pages, it was an ebook, and it was January when it was read. So I have divided these into months, and as you can see at the bottom, there is a to be read section, and this section is what decides if your books are going to simply be normal to be read books or if they're going to fall into this category. So that's the deciding factor that divides normal, I want to read at some point in the future books, and I want to read this book next, immediately next books. So there is a lot more detail for these books. And if you pull up the table full size, you can see, as well as the book title and author, pages and format, there is also series. So for example, this book is not part of any series, but this book is part of the Traveller series. You have genre, which is another drop-down menu. I try to include as many genres as possible, but there are, of course, so many additional ones as well as these, but I think this pretty much covers everything in a broad sense. And then you have the cover. So this is a link, and I got the link from, I believe it was Goodreads, from that cover. And it is an embedded link just taken from the Goodreads website, and you can paste it and that will give you the book cover. And here is what decides if the book is 2023 or not. So if you did read it this year, this week, this month, then you can add it. You can link this page, you just click the plus button, and then when it is added, it will show up as 2023. If you want to remove it for whatever reason, you can just hit the minus button and it will be taken away. And as you can see, it's no longer visible on your 2023 page. So this is a yearly tracker, but as I said, you can of course change it to monthly tracker, weekly tracker, however you decide to track your books. And finally, moving on to the final section, and definitely my favorite section, and that is my bookshelf. So this is the page that I know you all came for. And I did limit myself to just showing 15 books so as to not completely overwhelm you guys with this. But it is so cool, and it is super interesting to see when you add dozens and tens and hundreds and even thousands of books. This list does get very long, but it does look really cool. So my bookshelf is similar to the 2023 page, except this keeps track of all of your books. So as you can see, it doesn't matter what status the book is. So if you're reading it, if it's a side book, if you must read it still, if it's finished, or if you abandoned it, this is every single book that you own. You have the authors again, of course, you have the number of pages, you have the format, and for your finished books, you can also add a rating. So this is simple 1-star to 5-star system. Of course, you can change this, you can add more options. For example, if you prefer numbers, you can say, yes, it was 5. But again, if you don't want to rate your books, you can of course just click it and delete the property. There's also the series section, which you saw, the genre section, and the book covers section. So down at the bottom, you can see count is the total number of books that have been added to this table, the total amount of pages, which is very impressive, and how many series there are. So this doesn't keep track of each individual series, but for example, if you have 2 books that are part of the same series, it will show up once. So in these 15 books, there are 7 different unique book series. And again, you can view these using the book covers, and this is where it all comes together. This is where you can see just how interesting your bookshelf can look when you do use the covers section as opposed to the all book section. And of course, if you want to keep it as this and you don't want to go back to the table to edit or to add extra information, you can just select the book and it will appear and you will have all the different options here. So when you read it, the rating, format, genre, series, everything is saved here. You can also divide these books based on what progress they're in or what status they're in. So if you're currently reading it, they will appear here. If you've already read them, as well as your abandoned books, they will appear here. And you can also look at your next to be reads. So to add a new book, it is super simple. You just hit new book at the bottom and you can name it, for example, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Gotta go to HP example. And then you can either add the information in each section here, or personally, I prefer to open this page and it will appear at the side, and then you can add each section. So if it's in progress, written by J.K. Rowling, number of pages, for example, 300. Part of the Harry Potter series. Genre, it's adventure, it's children, it's fantasy. Format, you have it in paperback. You didn't read it this year because you're going to read it next. The book cover, you can get this link from Goodreads, from How Long to Read, from wherever you want. The rating, you haven't read it yet, and when you want to read it, in August. And then you can go back, and if you scroll up, you should be able to see it here. And this will work just as the same as all your other books, and it's as simple as that. So that is the end of the tutorial, walkthrough, overview. I did promise you guys I'd keep it as short and simple as possible, so you can hopefully like this video, comment down below any changes you'd make, and especially if you are going to use this template, or if there's things that you would have preferred that I didn't include, or new features that I do include next time, then please do let me know. And thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe, smash the notification bell, like, comment future video ideas, all of that down below. And I update new videos every single week, so I will talk to you guys then.